The shockingly disturbing Cumbria shootings were a shooting spree that occurred on the 2nd of June 2010 when lone gunman Derrick Bird, who was a taxi driver, killed 12 people, including his twin brother, and injured 11 others in Cumbria, England, in the United Kingdom. Also, in 1987, Hungerford massacre and the 1996 Dunblane school massacre occurred. It was one of the worst criminal acts involving firearms in British history. The shootings ended when madman Derrick Bird killed himself in a wooded area after abandoning his car in the village of Boot. The horrible shootings began mid-morning in Lamplugh and moved to Frizington, Whitehaven, Egremont and Gosforth and Seascale, sparking a major manhunt by the Cumbria Constabulary with the assistance from Civil Nuclear Constabulary officers. 30 crime scenes across Copeland were investigated by police. Queen Elizabeth II paid tribute to the victims, and the Prince of Wales later visited Whitehaven in the wake of the tragedy. Prime Minister David Cameron and Home Secretary Theresa May also visited West Cumbria. A memorial fund was set up to aid victims and affected communities. In the early hours of Wednesday, the 2nd of June 2010, Derrick Bird left his home in Rowa, Cumbria, drove his Citroen Zara Picasso to his twin brother David's home in Lamplugh and shot him 11 times in the head and body with a .22 caliber rifle, killing him in cold blood. Bird then drove to Frizington, arriving at the home of his family solicitor, Kevin Commons. Bird prevented Commons from driving away by firing twice with a double-barreled shotgun, which he had earlier torn off, the barrel and saw being later found at his home. Hitting him once in the shoulder, Commons staggered out of his car and onto the entrance to his farmyard, where Bird killed him with 2 rifle shots to the head. Bird then moved on towards Whitehaven. A witness called the Cumbria Constabulary to report the Commons shooting, although her call was delayed by several minutes after she asked neighbours what she should do. She also described Bird as being armed with an air rifle, despite being able to hear the gunshots. After killing Commons, Bird went to a friend's residence to retrieve a shotgun he had loaned, although he was answered by the friend's wife, who didn't have access to it. Afterwards, at 10:33 a.m, Bird drove to a taxi rank on Duke Street, Whitehaven, where he called over Darren Rewcastle, another taxi driver who was previously known to Bird. Bird had conflicts with Rewcastle over his behaviour, his practice of poaching fares, and an incident wherein Rewcastle damaged the tyres on Bird's taxi and openly boasted about it. When Rewcastle approached Bird's taxi, he was shot twice at point-blank range, with the rifle hitting him in the lower face, chest and abdomen. Rewcastle died of his injuries, becoming the only person to die in Whitehaven during the attacks after shooting Rewcastle. A fellow taxi driver, Richard Webster, shouted at Bird, who then sped off rather quickly. Soon after killing Rewcastle, Bird drove alongside another taxi, Donald Reed, and shot him in the back, wounding him. Bird then made a loop back to the taxi rank and fired twice at Reed as he waited for emergency personnel, missing him. Next, Bird drove away from the taxi rank and stopped alongside another taxi driver named Paul Wilson as he walked down Scott Street and called him over to his vehicle. As he did with Rewcastle, when Wilson answered his call, Bird shot him in the right side of his face with the sawn-off shotgun, severely wounding him As a result of the shootings, unarmed officers at the local police station were informed and began following Bird's taxi as it drove onto Coach Road. There, Bird fired his shotgun at a passing taxi, injuring the male driver, Terry Kennedy, and the female passenger, Emma Percival. Bird was then able to flee the officers after he aimed his shotgun at two of them, forcing them to take cover. However, he did not fire. He instead took advantage of the officers' distraction to brazenly escape. In the wake of the Whitehaven shootings, residents there and in the neighbouring towns of Egremont and Seascale were urged to stay indoors. A massive manhunt for Bird was launched by the Cumbria Constabulary, which was assisted by Civil Nuclear Constabulary officers. Bird proceeded to drive through several local towns, firing apparently at random and calling a majority of the victims over to his taxi before shooting them. Because of the first call, which was mistakenly reported to be an air rifle, the response from Cumbria Constabulary was severely delayed. After following Bird, police vehicles and a member of the public's van, who an officer had gotten into with, the driver gave chase to Bird, but unfortunately they took a wrong road and took the wrong direction, therefore losing him. Near Egremont, Bird tried to shoot Jacqueline Williamson as she walked her dog, but she managed to escape without injury. Upon arriving in Egremont, he stopped alongside Susan Hughes as she walked home from shopping and shot her in the chest and abdomen with the shotgun. He then got out of his taxi, got into a struggle with Hughes before fatally shooting her in the back of the head with his rifle. Then, after driving a short distance to Bridgend, Bird fired the shotgun at Kenneth Fishburne. As he walked in the opposite direction, Fishburne suffered fatal wounds to the head and chest. This was followed by the shooting of Leslie Hunter, who was called over to Bird's taxi before being shot in the face at close range with the shotgun, then a second time in the back after he turned away to protect himself. Hunter survived his injuries. Bird then went south towards Thornhill, where he fired his shotgun at Ashley Glaister, a teenage girl. However, he missed her and she ran off back towards her sister's home. He then passed Carlton and travelled onto the village of Wilton. There, he tried to visit Jason Carey, a member of the diving club Bird also belonged to, but Bird left when Carey's wife came to the door soon afterward. Bird then saw Jennifer Jackson walking down the road with her son. He then shot Jackson once in the chest with his shotgun and twice in the head with his rifle, killing her. Bird then drove past Townhead Farm, but turned back towards it and fired his shotgun, fatally hitting Jackson's husband James in the head and wounding a woman named Christine Hunter Hall in the back. While Hunter Hall survived the attack, she still has 100 pellets still lodged in her lung. He then drove back to Carlton and killed Isaac Dixon, a mole catcher who was fatally shot twice at close range as he was talking to a farmer in a field. A former semi-professional rugby player, Gary Perdham, was soon shot and killed while working in a field outside the Red Admiral Hotel at Boomwood near Gosforth. Bird then drove towards Seascale. Along the way, he began driving slowly and waved other motorists to pass him. He shot a motorist named James Jamie Clark, who suffered a fatal wound to the head. Although it was not clear at first whether he died from the gunshot or the subsequent car crash, Bird then encountered another motorist named Harry Berger at a narrow one-way passage underneath a railway bridge. When Berger allowed Bird to enter first, Bird fired at him as he passed by, shooting him twice and causing severe injury to his right arm. 3 armed response vehicles attempting to pursue Bird were later blocked out of the tunnel by Berger's vehicle. It had to be pushed away to let them pass. Meanwhile, Bird had driven on to Drigg Road, where he fired twice at Michael Pike, a retired man who was cycling in front of him. The first shot missed, but the second hit Pike in the head and killed him. Seconds later, while on the same street, Bird fatally shot Jane Robinson in the neck and head at point-blank range after apparently calling her over. After the killing of Robinson, who was the final fatality in the shootings, witnesses described Bird as driving increasingly erratically down the street at 11:33 a.m. Police constables Philip Lewis and Andrew Laverick spotted Bird as his car passed by their vehicle. They attempted to pursue him, but were delayed in roadworks and lost sight of him a minute later. Soon afterward, Bird drove into Escalation Valley, where he wounded Jackie Lewis in the neck with his rifle as she was out walking. At this point, his route had become clearer to police during their search for him. Next, Bird stopped alongside Fiona Moretta, who leaned into his passenger window, believing he was going to ask her for directions. Instead, he injured her in the chest with the rifle, then continued onward towards the village of Boot. Arriving in Boot, Bird briefly stopped at a business premises called Sims Travel and fired his rifle at nearby people, but missed. Continuing further into the village, he continued firing at random people and missing. Bird eventually fired his rifle at 2 men, hitting and severely wounding Nathan Jones in the face. This was shortly followed by a couple who had stopped their car to take a photo. Samantha Christie suffered severe wounds to the face from a rifle bullet. Christie's partner, Craig Ross, fled upon Bird's instruction and was then fired at, but escaped uninjured. Before shooting Christie, Bird asked her if she was having a nice day. Shortly after firing at 2 cyclists, Bird crashed his taxi into several vehicles and a stone wall, damaging a tyre. A nearby family of 4 offered assistance to Bird, but were quickly turned down and advised to leave. Bird removed the rifle from his taxi and walked over a bridge leading into Oak Howe Woods. He was last seen alive at 12:30 on the afternoon shortly afterward. Police confirmed that there had been fatalities and that they were searching for a suspect. Police later announced they were searching for the driver of a dark grey Citroen Zara Picasso, driven by the suspect, who was identified as Bird. At around 12:36 on the afternoon, armed police officers and dog handlers arrived at the scene of Bird's abandoned taxi and began a search in and around the wooded area. At 2 o'clock on the afternoon, Deputy Chief Constable Stuart Hyde announced that Bird's body had been found in a wooded area along with a rifle. Police confirmed shortly afterwards that members of the public who had taken shelter during the incident could now resume their normal activities. During the manhunt, the gates of the nearby Sellafield nuclear reprocessing plant were closed as a precaution, and the afternoon shift was told not to come to work. The aftermath of the disturbing incident. At 3 o'clock on the afternoon of the first session of the Prime Minister's questions, David Cameron confirmed that at least 5 people had died, including the gunman. Over the next few hours, Bird's shooting of his brother and solicitor was announced. Later that evening, a police press conference in Whitehaven announced that 12 people had been killed, that a further 11 people were injured, 3 of them critically, and that the suspect had killed himself. They also confirmed that 2 weapons, a sawn-off double-barreled shotgun and a .22 caliber rifle with a scope and silencer, had been used by the suspect in the attacks, and that 30 crime scenes were being investigated. The shootings were considered the worst mass casualty shooting incident in the UK since the 1996 Dunblane school massacre, which left 18 people dead. A report later determined that Bird fired at least 47 rounds during the shootings, 29 from his shotgun, 18 from his .22 rifle, and 6 live .22 rounds were also found on Bird's person, with an additional 8 loaded in a rifle. A search of Bird's home later recovered 750 rounds of live .22 ammunition, 240 live shotgun cartridges, and a large amount of financial paperwork. The police stated that the shootings took place along 24 kilometres, which is 15-mile stretch of the Cumbrian coastline. Helicopters from neighbouring police forces were used in the manhunt, while those from the RAF Search and Rescue Force and the Yorkshire Air Ambulance responded to casualties. A major incident was declared by North Cumbria University Hospitals, NHS Trust and West Cumberland Hospital, with the Accident and Emergency Department at the Cumberland Infirmary on full incident standby. Please like this video, don't forget to comment, and please subscribe to my crime channel. Thank you.